Check, check.
We're recording.
It would say mute on the screen if it was muted, right? No. I didn't push the mute button, did you?
It is 9 o'clock. We can call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have no additions or corrections to the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the agenda as presented.
Second.
And second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, the minutes of March 9th, the auditor's warrants from the 12th and 18th, and the hospital warrants.
I'd move the consent agenda.
Okay.
Support that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Nick?
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
All right. First up for me today is request for board action to approve some right-of-way payments. As you see, the list is pretty long, but if you look at the project numbers, just we have multiple owners on a few of these, so it got split, you know, I think some of these were 5 ways or 6 ways on the one, so nothing really noteworthy on these. They're pretty straightforward easements.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
Okay.
Second. Go ahead.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, my next item is to approve final payment for one of our box culvert contracts last year with Midwest Contracting out of Marshall. Final payment amount is $7,086.73. And as you'll see, this one actually came in a little under the original contract amount. Happens from time to time, usually goes the other way, but
I suppose just quantities.
yeah, it's, you know, when we draw up our plans, you know, everything's figured from a perfectly straight line and all that. And, you know, sometimes you get a little variation in the grade or whatever, you know, and, you know, it might take a little, you know, if, say they're up a ½ inch or something on a cut, well, you know, that eliminates quantity needed. So
Sure.
I'm not alarmed by this by any means, so.
Okay.
Nick, I know in the past we'd had issues with chips and so forth in the culverts and you'd assess damages. Has that been much better since we started that policy?
Yes. I don't know if it's the wording we put in there or if it's just,
Unawareness.
yeah, a fluke that time. I don't really know, but for whatever reason, we haven't, the project that got that whole thing started, we haven't seen anything to that level since then, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, next up is, we need to approve the grant agreement for the bridge bonding and, pass a resolution with that. It's for our 4 box culverts on County Road 56 heading south of town here. Be the same agreement as you approved 2 weeks ago, I think, for the ones by Holland. So, yeah, same thing, new project numbers, updated amount, so,
And just do one motion for both?
yeah, that's fine with me, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve resolution number 591621.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moving second. Any discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, my next item would be, if you recall, we used to buy our AutoCAD drafting software. We'd run it for a few years, whatever, and then they'd recommend we update, and then we'd usually be able to run it for another year or two before it'd really kind of glitch out and quit on us, and they quit supporting it. They don't do that anymore. You have to buy a subscription nowadays, which I'm sure costs more money than the way we used to do it, but there's just no, we can't just buy it anymore, so. So the software we use, two companies supply it. We were able to get quotes from them. As you see, last year we paid $4,630 for it. This year we can get it for $4,306.14. I guess last year there's a little bit of like the initial starting cost or whatever, so the renewal is a little bit less than that first year. I didn't realize it was gonna work that way, but whatever, it's still, I guess, so.
Hopefully it's like that every year.
Yeah, right, yep, so yes, this is the software we've been running for years, and I would recommend, purchasing from low bid from DLT Solutions LLC.
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
Okay, moving second. Any discussion?
It says purchase 2 seats. You got 2 operator stations then? Is that what that means?
Yes, we also have a third person that drafts too, but he doesn't use like all the in-depth features that the Civil 3D has. We can get by with a cheaper version for him. So we actually have 3 people that, well, and then a fourth too, but so we have 2 computers that use this program. The fancier one, and then the other 2 we get by with less on those.
That's
So we
good.
don't purchase that for all 4 of them.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, then my last item for today would be to purchase a skid steer broom. We got 2 bids for this, one from RDO Equipment, one from Ziegler Cat. Ziegler Cat was low bid at $4,100, and we budgeted $5,000 for this item. The same item, apples to apples here, so I recommend a little bit of from Ziegler Cat.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the bid from Ziegler Cat.
Okay.
Dan will second.
Okay, any discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, that's all I had for today. Did anybody have any other questions for me? Otherwise, I'll hang around for that gun range thing, so.
Okay.
In case there's any questions, so.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, let's see, we have Bruce Hine, Allison Trexler, and Andrea Formo from Magellan Pipeline.
Good morning, Commissioners
Good morning.
Good morning.
and staff. Thank you very much for having us today and for giving us a few minutes to speak with you. I'm joined this morning by Allison Trexler and Andrea Fromo. Allison, would you like to introduce yourself before I get started?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. As Bruce said, I'm Allison Trexler, and I'm with Massey Partners. I help to represent Magellan on the advocacy level, within the federal government. And what we're talking to you about today, this right-of-way renewal process, I've been involved with extensively with Bruce, so I'm happy to join him.
Thank you, Allison. Andrea?
Yes, hi, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Formo. I am with ERM, Environmental Resources Management, and I'm based out of Minneapolis. We help represent Magellan with local and county level governments during this renewal process. So happy to be here and share some information.
Thank you, Andrea. And thanks again for granting us a few minutes of your time this morning. We're visiting with you and not asking for anything, which is a favorite thing to do from a governmental affairs perspective, is to brief lawmakers and elected officials in regards to issues that affect our company and our industry, and not asking for something is a real treat. So Magellan is not a household name to many. So let me take just a moment and introduce our company to you. And Andrea, I'm on slide 2 now. The company is based in Oklahoma and has a footprint, as you can see on the map, in the Midwest, from Texas going north through Kansas, Missouri, up through Nebraska, in Minnesota, and as far west over to Wyoming and as far east as Chicago. And then you see a cluster of dots which represent refined petroleum product terminals over in the southeastern United States. But on the pipeline system itself, it's the longest refined products pipeline system in the United States, some 9,800 miles in length. And there are approximately 53 terminals, not approximately, but 53 terminals connected to that pipeline system, which is known as the Magellan Pipeline System. And several of those are in Minnesota. In the southwest pocket of the state, down in Sioux Falls, outside of the border, but in Marshall and Mankato and Rochester, and up in the Duluth area in Renshaw, big facility in the Twin Cities, as you can imagine, in Roseville, Minnesota, which is in between St. Paul and Minneapolis, and Alexandria. So we cover the state, and approximately 60% of the refined petroleum products consumed in the state every day flow through Magellan's pipeline system and through our distribution terminals. So before I move on, let me briefly explain how the pipeline system works. The pipeline itself is constructed out of carbon steel. Segments of the line have been in use for several decades. And as long as we protect the pipeline, which we do, there is an indefinite life to how long a pipeline can be in service and in safe service. So the lines are typically 3 to 5 feet deep below the ground. The product that we move in the pipeline system moves approximately 3 to 5 miles per hour. So about the speed that you and I could walk is how fast the product is moving through our pipeline system. So if we were to start a batch of gasoline or diesel fuel or jet fuel down in the Houston area and move it up into Marshall, Minnesota, it would take a little bit more than 3 weeks to do so. But because we have such an abundance of 2 grades of product in our pipeline system, we're able to operate it as a common carrier, like an ATM machine. In other words, if you went downtown Pipestone and received money out of an ATM at your bank or your local convenience store, it's not the same $20 or $100 that you put in making a deposit if you deposit it in cash. So the way our system works is we have an abundance of low-octane gasoline, 83 octane gasoline, and ultra-low sulfur diesel. And because we have such an abundance of those 2 products in our system, we can give it back to our customers. If one gives us a batch of fuel in Houston, we can give it back to them in Marshall without waiting on the transit time. So that's a unique feature of how the Magellan pipeline system works and the efficiencies that we have in the system. I would also tell you that it's really indisputable about the economics of moving liquid energy by pipeline versus other modes of transportation. And the average tariff on our pipeline system, in other words, if you consider us to be a toll road, it would be what do our customers pay to move products from point A to point B. The average tariff or toll on the system is just 4 cents a gallon to move product around our system in the Midwest. So when you compare that to other modes of transportation, whether it's truck or whether it's rail or whether it's ship or whether it's barge, it's really indisputable that pipelines are the most efficient and cost-effective way to move liquid energy from where it's produced to where it's consumed. So we're a large stakeholder in the state of Minnesota. We have been for years. Our company historically was owned by the Williams companies, and those of you that have been in Minnesota for your lives or a good portion of your lives may have remembered us as the Williams Pipeline or the Williams Brothers Pipeline Company. So Magellan was spun off by the Williams companies in 2003, and we were purchased by 2 private equity firms at that moment and structured as a partnership. And that allowed us to be traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol of MMP, Mary Paul. Since that point in time, we've further fine-tuned the structure of our company, and 100% of Magellan Midstream Partners is owned by the public, both institutional and retail investors. A lot of our investors are over the age of 50 that depend upon us for their retirement needs and for a stable source of income. So that's the structure of our company. That's our footprint in Minnesota. That's our system throughout the Midwest. And you really look at the map, commissioners and staff and ladies and gentlemen, and you can see that once we get out of Oklahoma going north, we're typically surrounded by soybean and corn farming and agriculture. And that's a very, very important part of our business, particularly in Minnesota, as a lot of the fuel that we transport through our pipeline system, really throughout the state of Minnesota, is diesel fuel. And diesel is needed this time of year as farmers are preparing for planting coming up, and in the fall they'll prepare for harvest. And so Magellan plays a huge role in farming economics as it relates to having an abundance of fuel that's affordable for them and that's reliable for them. So farming, agriculture, ranching, all depends upon Magellan for their diesel fuel needs. Okay, Andrea, I'm ready to move on. The reason that we're talking to you today as an educational matter is we're working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Their property is highlighted by red on this map, and the pipeline is highlighted with a red line on this map. And you can see that we go through the Fish and Wildlife property by about a half a mile, and that pipeline, that 8-inch pipeline that Magellan has owned, was installed in 1947. So in that era, the company was owned by an entity by the name of Great Lakes Pipeline. Williams bought it in 1966. I don't mean to go into this history, but some of you may have an interest in all of that. And in 1947, we had a right-of-way agreement with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to not only install but operate the pipeline system. We're in the process now of working with the Fish and Wildlife Service to renew that agreement for the next 20 to 30 years to give us the ability to operate the pipeline system over that half mile for the next period of time. To do that, we're going through a process that I'll explain in a little bit greater detail with Fish and Wildlife Service. And we're at the early stages of that, but it will involve a right-of-way grant that entails a number of different regulatory requirements, both with the National Environmental Policy Act and with the National Historic Preservation Act. There's requirements within both of those laws that allow us to work with affected stakeholders, give us the ability to work with affected stakeholders, and provide guidelines for the Fish and Wildlife Service to work with affected stakeholders to conduct various studies that will involve public involvement. And these programs allow the outreach to various tribes and other stakeholders seeking their input in regards to a right-of-way renewal. So the key takeaway here on this particular map as it relates to Pipestone is that we're not asking for anything new. We're not asking to reroute the pipeline. We're not asking to increase the capacity of the pipeline. We're not asking to do any abnormal digging in the area other than just our ability to conduct routine maintenance in the future. So this is not a right-of-way renewal for a new pipeline system. It's not one that we're changing out the pipeline. It's simply asking for the ability to continue the status quo for the next 20 to 30 years. I would also add, Commissioners, that we have had no incident in regards to a pipeline release or a petroleum product release on this segment of pipeline since it was installed back in 1947. Okay, Andrea, ready for the next one. So I had mentioned that the Fish and Wildlife Service is in the early stages of working through the National Energy Policy Act and the National Historic Preservation Act. They will be reaching out to the tribes in somewhat the near future, and we're on a path for public outreach. In other words, we wanted to talk to you. We've talked to the City Council in Pipestone. There's other community leaders that will be reaching out to, other elected officials within Minnesota that we want to reach out to, and of course and most importantly the tribes. We want to make sure that we provide a background from Magellan's perspective of what role we play in the community and how important this segment of pipeline is to ensure that the southwest region of the state of Minnesota has adequate supplies of product. So in saying that, one of the other ways that our pipeline system works, and as you all know, there's no petroleum refining capacity over in the western part of the state. There's lots of ethanol production and an increasing level of biodiesel production in the region, but there's not petroleum refining capacity over in the southwestern portion of the state. So gasoline supply, diesel supply that you and I would buy at our local convenience store or truck stop or service station generally comes in by pipeline to a distribution terminal in Marshall or Sioux Falls or over the border in Watertown or up in Alexandria. And those products are delivered by the Magellan pipeline system, and we're connected to the two refineries in the Twin Cities area, both in Pine Bend and St. Paul Park. But the system is also connected to 50% of the nation's refining capacity. Now, that's significant from the standpoint that all the refineries in the Houston area, which are really the biggest in the country, Texas City, Oklahoma, Kansas refineries are all connected to our pipeline system. And that gives us lots of flexibility in the event that there's a storm, in the event that there's a power outage, in the event that there is planned maintenance at any particular refinery. When one goes down, we've got the ability, the way that our system is designed, to be able to continue to build inventory and generally meet the needs of our customers at our terminals throughout the middle part of the country. Well, if this segment of pipeline is for some reason no longer in service, that eliminates our flexibility. And what we strive to have is that the markets we serve to have multiple supply options, both sometimes from the north, sometimes from the south. The best combination is for both directions. So we want to work hard with the Fish and Wildlife Service and to do our best with individual stakeholders to educate them on the safe way that we move products through this pipeline system and the benefits that having multiple sources of supply for Southwest Minnesota provides for not only farmers but for motorists that depend on competitive priced gasoline. So if we had to begin moving product in by truck from further away than Marshall, for example, it would increase the cost of transportation. It would increase emissions. It would increase the number of trucks on the road, which in some cases can create a safety issue. So we're striving to continue our normal operation and making sure that affected stakeholders understand the importance of a pipeline serving their community. Okay, Andrea. So through the process with Fish and Wildlife Service, we remain committed to working with affected stakeholders to let them know what we have learned from the process at Fish and Wildlife and how important it is for us to be open and transparent with the facts as we have them as it relates to this renewal process. So it's our goal to work through this process in a manner that satisfies all stakeholders. That's our goal. Our company has had a long-standing role in the state of Minnesota. We expect to be a stakeholder moving petroleum products and over the future transporting renewable fuels like biodiesel and biodiesel blends through our pipeline system, transporting other products like renewable diesel in our pipeline system. And gasoline is no doubt going to be changing over time. We're possibly going to see changes in the octane numbers in gasoline as the fuel continues to get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner over time. So particularly in northern climates where electric vehicles sometimes don't make as much sense as other southern climates in metropolitan areas, in the rural markets in southwest Minnesota, we believe there's a long future towards liquid fuels and liquid energy. The composition may change. We're going to be a part of transporting the fuels of the future. We expect that an increasing share of that will be renewable. And for the petroleum side of it, those fuels are going to get cleaner and cleaner. The automakers are continuing to spend a lot of resources on electric vehicle technology, but they're not asleep at the switch in regards to perfecting or working to perfect the emissions, the performance, and the weight of an internal combustion engine. And we think all of those things are going to change in the future. That will still promote the longevity of liquid energy. So we think we've got a long future ahead of us in meeting the needs of the constituents in southwest Minnesota. Okay, Andrea, I'm ready for the next one. So let me summarize. In regards to the importance of pipelines, and I know pipelines have been in the news quite a bit lately in Minnesota, but pipelines are the safest way to transport liquid energy from where it's produced to where it's consumed. As it relates to Magellan's history that goes all the way back to 1947, that the pipeline segment that we're looking to renew the right-of-way agreement with Fish and Wildlife has had 0 incidents since 1947. This new right-of-way agreement that we have would give us the ability to coordinate with Fish and Wildlife on any maintenance that we needed to do. We are constantly working to monitor the volume and the pressure of this segment and all other segments of our pipeline system. We have a team of Magellan employees here in Tulsa that are dedicated to our pipeline operations group in our control center. And every day, throughout the day and night, they're looking at the pressure, they're looking at the volume to detect if there's anything that goes wrong. And if it does, we have a large team of Magellan subject matter experts that are trained on how to deal with emergency response. So this is our business. We're not diversified in other forms of natural gas or natural gas pipelines. We're in the refined product pipeline business and the crude oil pipeline business down in Texas, Colorado, and Oklahoma, where we have some crude oil pipeline assets. But in Minnesota, we're in the refined products pipeline business, and that has been our focus for generations here at Magellan. So renewing the right-of-way is important for the ability to serve Southwest Minnesota with reliable, abundant, and affordable gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. And so our goal is to have a successful process with the Fish and Wildlife Service, to work cooperatively with them, to work in an effort to keep stakeholders such as yourselves and others involved and aware of the process as we're moving forward, because it's our desire to make sure that you have as much supply flexibility in the southwest corner of the state as you currently have today. So I'll stop there and ask if you've got any questions that we can address.
I guess one question is, for your sources of refined product, is it all coming from Texas and Oklahoma, or do you have sources in the upper Midwest as well?
Thank you for the question. We do have connections to refineries in St. Paul and St. Paul Park, and we are able to transport fuel from those refineries in the Twin Cities over and then come south out of Wilmer down to Marshall. We also have the ability to bring products from the Gulf Coast, from those Texas refineries and Kansas and Oklahoma refineries, and go north. And our pipeline system splits off when we get to Kansas City and takes a northwestern turn to Omaha, and from Omaha up to Sioux Falls, and then Sioux Falls into Marshall. So we also have the ability to serve Marshall from the south, and also Watertown, South Dakota. So that gives us the best of both worlds. When there's an abundance of supply in the north, we can supply Marshall from the Twin Cities. When we have an abundant supply in the south, then we can supply it from refineries on the Gulf Coast and throughout the other Midwestern states. So we've got the flexibility for both.
And do you have any estimate of the variance in cost if this were not available to use this line, as far as, you know, what the retail difference in price would be roughly?
We're not in the trucking business, but there would be not only transportation inefficiencies by moving products further along by truck. Say, instead of out of Marshall, you'd have to go up to Alexandria and then come back down into the Pipestone area and other areas in southwest Minnesota. But by having a source of supply that may be exclusive from the north instead of both the south and the north, then when there are refinery maintenance issues, when there are other factors that come into play, unexpected power outages, cold weather that can cause issues, When those types of events, and another issue, I shouldn't fail to mention this, is very high demand spikes, such as when we encounter planting season and harvest season, when demand for diesel fuel is extremely high. So when those things happen, you would put more trucks on the road. And again, Magellan's not in the trucking business, so I don't have what those increased transportation costs would be. But as I mentioned, it would not only be an increased transportation cost, but it would be an emissions increase by more trucks on the road, and then potentially safety issues in certain areas.
And potentially a risk of shortage of product? I mean, if you didn't have the flexibility to have fuel come from both directions, is there a possibility that during these surges in demand that you would actually not have enough to meet demand?
Yes, that has happened before, and we strive to make sure that we've got adequate products at each terminal to meet the demands of our customers. But when demand outstrips supply, we have outages, and that requires our customers to drive longer distances to go to other Magellan facilities. And we're not the only terminal operator in the state. There are others. We have a large market presence, as mentioned. Around 60% of the fuel in Minnesota flows through our system. So it's our desire to work through this process, to come out of it with an agreement that lasts 20 to 30 years in the future and gives us the flexibility to make sure that we are able to supply all of the needs of not only our customers, but the motorists in those areas that rely on us in southwest Minnesota.
Any other? Dan?
Bruce, this is Dan Wildermuth. The other segments of line that you have that are not part of this renewal process, is there a difference in between a right-of-way and an easement?
Not necessarily, Commissioner. They're used interchangeably. A lot of the agreements that we have are with the public that have been established generations ago. As mentioned, that the origins of what was the Great Lakes pipeline system goes back into the 1930s, and many of those agreements on the main trunk of the line go back into that generation. And other segments have been acquired not only from ranchers and farmers and other homeowners, but by commercial businesses as well, to where there's compensation that goes to the landowner when we strike an agreement for a right-of-way. And those typically have been in place for quite a period of time. Now, we have been involved in building some new pipeline projects. Most of those have been down in Texas, whether it's for crude oil or whether it's for refined petroleum products. And we just finished a new segment of pipeline from the Houston area going up towards the middle of Texas and then swinging out to Midland, Odessa, out in the western section of the state. And we're able to successfully negotiate right-of-way agreements with landowners along the way. So those words are used interchangeably for the most part. And we do our best when we're working on a new right-of-way agreement to meet the needs of the landowner and still end up in an agreement that's good for both parties. So there's a lot of focus on that for the industry and for our company.
So why is it then that you only need the renewal on this half-mile stretch? The other pipeline that you have, you've got more of a long-term easement or right-of-way on those?
Sir, Commissioner, that's correct. Yeah, they don't have, in most part, they don't have an expiration date, and this one does and needs to be renewed with Fish and Wildlife Service.
You've got other areas throughout the United States that you've got this type of right-of-way agreement with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, or is this unique?
This is unique in this region of our pipeline system. There are other areas where we work with the Bureau of Land Management, which is also under the Department of Interior, on right-of-way arrangements, particularly out in the western states such as Texas and New Mexico. But this one's somewhat unique for us up in the northern region of our pipeline system.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Other questions?
Any other questions that we can be helpful with this morning?
I don't believe so. Thank you very much for coming.
May I summarize, Commissioner, before we leave you?
You bet.
Thank you again, Commissioners, for your time this morning. Thanks to your staff and ladies and gentlemen in the audience, of whether you're watching online or whether you're in person. Andrea and Allison and I want to thank you very much for hearing us out and for listening to the opportunity that we have in front of us. We hope that this is a smooth process with Fish and Wildlife. We're expecting to work cooperatively with them. We have had a dialogue ongoing with the team and the leaders at Fish and Wildlife in the region for several months. Allison and I have worked with others within the Department of Interior to highlight the importance of the ability to continue to operate this segment safely. So, in closing, we're not asking for anything that's new. We're not going to relocate the pipe. We're not going to expand its capacity. We're not going to dig and make it deeper or make it shallower. We're not doing any of those things. All we're asking for with Fish and Wildlife is to extend the right-of-way to give us the ability to serve southwest Minnesota for the next generation. So as we work through this process, we'll be committed to keeping you informed of any unexpected issues that may come up, and that we may cycle back at some point in time and ask for any assistance that we deem to be necessary at some later date.
Sure. Bruce, I did think of one other thing too. Could you elaborate a little bit? I know you got a very extensive safety program, including your patrol of the line. You patrol it both with airplanes and other. Could you speak to that to help reassure people that it is operated safely?
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. From a pipeline safety standpoint, we use a number of different techniques to ensure that the integrity of the line, to ensure that it's protected from corrosion. The pipelines are coated, number one, as I mentioned, 3 to 5 feet deep. They're coated with a material designed to protect the pipe from corrosion. We also have a low level of electric charge that follows our pipeline system to fend off corrosion from an exterior standpoint. We use tools, and this is not a farm reference, but in the pipeline industry, these tools are referred to as pipeline pigs. So they're a smart tool that actually goes inside the pipe and is moving along to detect any pockets of corrosion or detect a dent to where a farmer or rancher may have been clearing a fence line or maybe clearing a piece of land for a new driveway, anything along that where they may have scraped or hit the pipe with a piece of mechanized equipment. If there's a dent, we can detect that. And if it's something that we deem to be a problem, then we repair it. We replace that section of pipeline that had been damaged. So along with that, as I mentioned, we have a control room that checks the volume and the pressure of the pipe on a 24-hour-a-day basis. And if there's an indication that there's a pipeline failure or a failure within inside one of our tank farms or one of our terminals where we monitor those tanks and the pressures and the volumes as well, then emergency responders are notified immediately, and Magellan instigates a code, what we call a code red, which puts some 100 plus Magellan employees on alert that we have a potential release. And we don't wait for an individual to say, oh, I've seen it and there's product coming out here or there. Those emergency response procedures are acted on immediately if there's an indication of a pipeline incident. So the other measure that we work on pipeline safety is to fly with a fixed wing aircraft the length of our pipeline system no longer than every 2 weeks. And in that case, what we're looking for is any, particularly in southwest Minnesota, any discolored vegetation that would indicate that there might be a slow pipeline issue, slow release, in other words, a pinhole, something of that nature that might not be detectable otherwise. So there's other modes that we use to control our pipeline routes. Some of those involve ATVs. In some cases, it's on foot. But there's evolving technology on that, Commissioners, where drones may be used in the future. But right now, we're a company that utilizes fixed wing aircraft to fly the routes that we have to further monitor and secure the safety of the system. So we've got a control room that monitors pressure and volume. We've got cathodic protection, preventing corrosion. We've got pipeline coatings that are in place on the entire system. And then we've got surveillance to patrol from the air. And then if something did go wrong, we're amongst the best in the business of dealing with emergency response. And I'm one of the team. One member of the team here at Magellan. I'm trained in the media side to deal with an emergency. And others have responsibilities from operations to environment and are wide-ranging in the emergency response arena.
Could you also speak to the federal oversight that you are held to? I understand you've got reporting obligations to the U.S. Coast Guard for one, and could you expound on that?
We do with the Coast Guard for our marine facilities down in Texas and along the U.S. Gulf Coast. The security measures to get into a marine petroleum terminal are very stringent these days. And so Coast Guard is very much involved in any product incident that would hit water in the Gulf Coast, for example. But in the state of Minnesota, we work with the Minnesota Office of Pipeline Safety. They're affiliated with the Department of Transportation on the federal side, and the Office of Pipeline Safety, which is referred to as PHMSA. So they're the regulatory body on the federal side, and the Bureau within the state of Minnesota has a number of pipeline safety initiatives and pipeline safety regulations that we adhere to. In the event that anything goes wrong, one of the key stakeholders that's notified immediately is the local Office of Pipeline Safety in Minnesota. So we have key regulators that implement the pipeline safety legislation that has been passed and signed by the President in the Congress. So every few years, pipeline safety legislation is renewed. It gives PHMSA their funding to continue to regulate the pipeline industry, and then also generally imposes more stringent standards to continuously work on pipeline safety. And our industry at large has been effective in reducing the number of incidents over the years. So thanks for the question, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not? Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you all. Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, next, Mark Stupen. Come on up here to discuss your...
Well, if somebody lose keys, I found these outside on the street, or out right on the sidewalk. Probably have to run them upstairs when we're done.
That'd be great.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we're here just to visit with you a little bit. We're trying to start a club going to be known as like Pipestone County Sportsman's Club, and we plan to be a 501c3 nonprofit club, and we're kind of pursuing to exploring for a spot to build a range or some sort of range and shooting sports to be used by the community and the sheriff's department, and promote youth and adult firearm safety courses along with general shooting and trap shooting. And then also with that, like in the trap shooting, our youth, my kids were in 4-H and FFA trap shooting, and they always come out to the farm and did it because there's no place for them to do, and we borrowed the Pheasants Forever trap shooting stuff and whatnot. And then of course they have to travel all the time to go somewhere. And you know, we used to have a trap shooting thing when I was a kid south of town, and of course that went by the wayside and whatnot. And so through adult firearm safety shooting and stuff through the sheriff's department, we were out on the east side of the landfill in that bottom of the Bannock gravel pit there for them shooting programs and whatnot. And I think the Youth Pheasants Forever have used that too possibly, but just kind of exploring the possibilities of converting that into a decent range that could be utilized by the Sportsman's Club and the Sheriff's Department, and enhancing their trainings and their targeting and whatever they want to do. And we're strictly in the exploration process. I mean, we have a lot of ideas. Don't know if we can get any of them off the ground. We don't know if zoning would work. I guess what we were kind of looking for is, you know, an opportunity to explore it. If you could grant us that to check it out, or if you're totally opposed to anything in that piece of property. Just like I said, 100% exploratory. Maybe it can't make zoning. Maybe it has local neighbors that it would not work with, right? I mean, so kind of just check it out is what we'd like to do.
Good. Any thoughts, anyone?
First thing that comes to my mind would be the liability, as far as the county is concerned.
Well, we would be looking at, there's waivers and stuff to sign as a shooters. We would probably lease it, would like to lease the property from the county for 99 years or something like that. That way we could have a contract with the county so that we wouldn't have to, we could release you guys of any liability or anything.
I think
like that,
the club would probably be in charge of insuring
it and
making
so
sure the
on.
liability's not on the county.
But first and foremost, I mean, it has to be able to pass zoning. There's a ton of state regulation and stuff. I mean, we need to get through that hurdle. If we can't jump that hurdle, there's no more conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's basically, that hurdle has to get
Step
jumped
one
first. Step
is
one. I mean,
basically it.
Kyle, can you give us any information on this? Or?
Yeah, I briefly talked to Mark already. I anticipate us going through a conditional use permit, you know, notifying the neighbors, having a hearing. The county board would take action on that, you know, have final say on that also. I don't know, Mark, is there any other state permits that are required that you're aware of?
I don't know, but I sure want to research it because it needs to be done right. I mean, we don't want to mess around. It's got to be right. And I've done a little bit of research with Tyler, but I didn't quite get it all accomplished yet. And I kind of like to research a couple of them in Minnesota. I think Murray County might have one too, just because of their rules and regulations.
Right.
And setbacks and all that. You know, like I said, this is a we may be jumping the gun a little, but we're trying to find a spot, or else there's no sense in having a sportsman's club if we can't have a range. Some sportsman's clubs, you know, they'll get land for hunting stuff, you know, and some will have a a shooting club, you know, and a place to go. And we're kind of going down the shooting club line because there is nothing in the community right now.
Right.
And in law enforcement, it'd be a great place for them to if it was more enhanced than what it is, for their trainings and for kids. I just, you know, get
Well, I
kids
think
started right.
our kids had to go to Marshall to do trap shooting. And like, why not bring people here? Why do we go to other places, spend money in other towns, go out to eat in other towns and do our rifle shooting or pistol shooting indoors? You know, why not spend the money here? You know, and I know the police department, sounds like they've got to go all the way to Marshall, or all the way to Minneapolis it is, to do their certification. We potentially could help them and then bring other departments here to do their training, and then you've got hotels and you've got restaurants and another way to keep people in our community too.
Right.
Trap is one of the largest high school sports as well as the safest. No one's been injured. You have football injuries and everything else, but trap, have been no injuries.
Mhm.
And if you get towards northern Minnesota, it is huge.
Yeah.
No, sure. I think the concept has great potential, I really do, and I agree with your comments as far as economic development and also for our high school teams and so forth. It's a great idea. And Mark, I appreciate that you recognize that there's a lot of things that have to be worked out first. Have you done any research as any privately owned property? We've got a number of gravel pits in the area. Would those be viable for you? Because again, the concern is the liability, and also we need to have that area you're talking about up here has a lot of other uses. It's not just it's just not an old abandoned gravel pit that's being used. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Keith, we use that as well too for our own, and we want to be able to keep some separation between the public and also law enforcement's training area. I appreciate your goal.
I think there'd be timing. We'd have to schedule around
Yeah.
the police department, and it's got to be a partnership. It can't be a one or done. But I think we are exploring other areas too, but we want an opportunity to take a look at this too, because it is really a perfect location for something like this.
It's a great idea, but location-wise, what other gravel pits are there in the area? I can think of a number of them that might possibly work.
I don't think we've really researched any others at this point. This
No,
has kind of
haven't
come
seen
up.
that.
Mostly because it's on a tar road, easy access. So we kind of looked at it, we've discussed it among those of us that are in, starting this, and thought we would bring it up here first.
I guess one of the things is it's long and narrow. If you wanted to have like a long rifle target thing, that was the attractive part of it. But so yeah,
There's a lot of competitions shoot out 600 meters, which is close to that half mile. There's just like 800 meters or so in that half mile section, and it would play good for having those type of competitions and bringing them in, and then of course the sheriff's department being able to use the long range for their long range qualifying, and then have other areas for other things. So it just seemed like a very logical spot to start.
Sheriff, do you have any input on this?
We've been looking for a better range for years, we kind of threw our own together out there. We really don't have a range when we use it. So yeah, we'd support anything that a better range for us would be good.
Right,
We would make use of it.
good. Nick, do you see any issues from don't you sometimes use that property?
We do, and I don't know how much space they'd be looking for, so it kind of depend on that. But I'm pretty optimistic that there's enough room out there for the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
We have our other property too,
Right.
our gravel pit, so it's like, I'm in favor of it, looking into it. No reason to wait, go back from, our perspective. So.
Right.
Would it be available for the whole county to use? Yes. Right now, the Edgerton area trap shooting high school team goes on a private property to do it by Chandler.
That's why the name is Pipestone County Sportsman's Club.
we would have to be a membership organization to a degree, because it has to be taken care of as far as maintained and stuff like
Safety
that,
and-
so, and if we have to insure it and stuff, so there would be it'd probably have to be some kind of a membership deal, and
But anybody in the county.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
there's-
not, it's not an exclusive sports club. It's our community. It's one more thing Pipestone County has to offer to our residents.
it's no different than if we went to Tyler per se to get a membership, which I think Troy has one, to go up there and use that. If somebody from Tyler wanted to use ours and they want to have a membership, and a lot of them run by a passcode card they renew every year, and then that'll let you in, and you got to have control over it. I mean, it's got to be run right, or else it can't.
Right.
No screwing around.
You ever been to that club north of Wyndham?
I haven't.
That looks like a pretty nice one. I've driven by it, I've never been in there.
Yeah.
We do plan to go visit some different clubs and see how they're put together and to make sure ours is put together well. And, you know, through membership and some fundraising, and that's the part of the 501c3 is to be able to have people do donations to our community to help it grow and help it be a better organization, to be as safe as it can be, to do the community education for youth and for adults at the same time. So there's a lot. We see trap shooting leagues down the road. We see a lot of great, but one step at a time, getting there, making sure it's done properly and making sure it's safe and everything along the way.
There's grants and such too, we've been told, and matching fund grants on the startup side, but we still have to be, you know, it has to be zoned first. There's just so many hurdles, and then whether we can raise the funding, and, you know, if we couldn't, then, you know, we're not trying to take a piece of property for nothing for something else. It has to be, you know, this could be a great thing, or we could go away real fast, you know, but the first step is to research it.
Right.
And if we can't make all them things come together, then, you know, we'll have to go from there.
You envision maybe someday having a structure out there as well, too?
Yes,
Yes.
we were gonna look in, the NRA has planning, they offer a service that's free to start up ranges and then help us plan it and set up things like, what's called no blue sky baffles, so that no rounds can leave the range. We would really like to have a place where we could set a building up so that we could have an indoor range, so that in the wintertime, we can have shooting indoors, small, usually you can go up to large handgun and then small rifle rounds inside. You could have 22 leagues and so on and so forth, all inside.
Probably archery too.
I was just gonna ask archery if that'd be a possibility.
Yeah, we're open to all sportsman things, just kind of start with this first and explore and expand, see what we can do. Maybe we can't get nothing going, but
So I'm guessing you're just looking for some general consensus that it's okay to proceed, you know, looking into
Right,
it to.
right. Yeah, we're not here for big commitments, and,
Right.
you know, later on, if it is eligible zoned and it's workable in that geography, you know, then we'd have to start bigger discussions on liability and so forth and whatnot, and move ahead that way. Work with Keith and Edison. I know I haven't talked to Edison personally yet, but through Mike, that, you know, he has some aspirations about what they'd like to have, and, you know, if we have to have some separation there and all that, I mean, it's gotta work out for everybody. We're not here to take anything away from anybody or anything like that. If it can't work, it can't work, and if it can, we'd be honored to try it, so.
Mr. Chairman, I did reach out to MCIT, Minnesota Counties Insurance Trust, regarding this issue, and they did come back with some concerns on this. Basically, leasing land to the nonprofit would still likely expose the county to liability exposures as the owner of the property, even with hold harmless defense and indemnification provisions in the lease agreement. Nonprofits are not protected by Minnesota Statute 466 that provides defense in the form of immunities and tort caps if not immune for public entities. And also, MCIT does not provide any environmental liability, excludes pollution liability coverage as well. So they do have some concerns with a lease arrangement with this, which obviously would be different if it was a sales arrangement and the county were to sell the property. So unfortunately, there is a deep pocket issue here.
Which, maybe that's an issue we address as we move along, you know?
It
We
would
just-
have to be, yeah. Obviously, that would have to be addressed, but I just wanted to throw it out at the front end that there is a concern by our insurer right now in a lease agreement.
And we expected that. That's not a surprise by any means. Everybody should be thinking about everything as we move forward.
Yep.
We have not finished the 501c3 either, so I mean, maybe there's other avenues we can revert to or ways of making them things bind. I said we're 100% exploring, so.
Sure.
Trust me, my intention is not throwing cold water on this. I think it's something that should be looked at.
Yeah,
But
you
we
just
have
want
to
to
look at
cover your
everything.
bases.
Right.
Is there like general consensus that it's okay for him to at least continue to explore this option, or?
Well, yeah, I love the concept, but the
Got to work out the details,
the
obviously.
details,
Yeah,
yes.
get through all the hurdles.
Right.
Yeah.
Even simple things like a structure, you're gonna have to have bathroom facilities, so then it gets into septic out in that gravel pit. Can you have a leach field, or all kinds of details have to be worked out.
It sounds like, doesn't sound like there's any concerns anyway, other than, you got a lot of homework to do to
Well,
make it work. But yeah, feel free to explore it, I guess, and
Okay.
good luck and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what we can come up with, and then from there, we'll probably work with Kyle here just to check some of the stuff out. And
Perfect.
then we'll have to, probably the next phase would be whether a liability situation can be arranged or not.
Right.
Or, from
Right.
there on, and if that can be, we'll just, yeah.
And I'm guessing you might have to work with the state where the landfill portion is right next door, if there's any issues with that, or,
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done, and we'll, just one step at a time.
sure.
It's gonna take time, we know that, but, yeah, get over one hurdle, get the next one, I guess, so.
You bet.
Would
Chair,
the
just wondered-
perimeter of the range have to be completely fenced in? Do you know, is that one of the safety rules? I don't.
We'll find out.
We're looking at that.
And then the projectiles, does it have to be steel only? Can you use lead? There's so much to look at.
Nope.
No.
Well, projectiles would be any steel or lead. You don't see much steel, you really want lead. Steel has a tendency to pierce things that.
Yes, yeah, I realize that. But then you got, again, we talked already, the environmental issue
Right.
with the lead and everything else. It's a complicated world
Yep.
anymore.
No, it is, and that's what we gotta explore a lot of stuff.
And there is things that they do for lead and ways to protect it, and so we just gotta figure out if this is a location that's viable, and if it is, then we'll go to the next step on that then.
Trap ranges have mining, they actually have people that come out and mine the lead around trap ranges and backstops, and they come in and dig it out, separate it, and then replace the dirt back into the berms so that that can all be mined.
Screen it.
It has value.
There's other things we've thought about, like, how do we, with natural resources, with the butterflies, and there's other things that we can do to benefit that area in addition. I mean, we're all about benefiting everybody and everything, so that it's a pretty positive thing, I think.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to voice support on your guys' concept. I think it's a fantastic idea. Just wish you luck in the rest of it, sifting through the details.
All right, thank you.
You bet, good luck.
Thank you.
Could I have your names? I don't know all you guys.
Troy Budden.
Troy Wooden,
Dave Summers.
Dave Summers, okay.
Thank you.
Please keep in touch.
Yeah, we will. We'll
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
start the process here a little bit.
Good.
Thanks, Mark.
I'm gonna take them keys up to the upstairs if anybody comes looking for them, or should I
Good
just
idea.
leave them here?
Mark, I can grab them. I'll go.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know, they're right on the sidewalk, so can't believe somebody. Thanks.
You can't be driving away.
Take a short recess.
Sure.
Okay.
Have you ever been to that range in Del Rapids?
Suppose when Mary Ann comes.
Okay, we can reconvene, and we'll start with Mary Ann.
Well, the main pile can come up too if they would like.
Okay.
They'll sit back. Good morning.
Good morning.
The reason I am here is basically for information purposes. There is a couple of proposed bills before the legislature this year. And the big one was, I think, $639. I gotta find my paper here. And it is a bill that is proposing an increase on the filing fees. For a little background on the recording fees, in 2005, we went to a basic fee of $46. No matter what county you file in, it's $46, except for several metro counties which have imposed a $5 conservation fee. What the bill is proposing is to increase the filing fee from $46 to $71 on all deeds and mortgages that are subject to deed tax. A lot of our ag mortgages are exempt, so it would not pertain to them. Both MACO, AMC, and also our association, the Minnesota County Recorders Association, oppose this bill. It is in the Clean Water Act, and that is House File number 639. And the Clean Water Act has done some really good things for the state. It protects, enhances, restores water quality in our lakes, rivers, and streams. It also protects our groundwater resources. So the bill does have some good things in it. The one thing that we do object to is that all documents will not now have the same filing fee. The key word is may. The counties may impose this fee. So if Rock County imposes it, they could have some of their documents be $71, some of the documents will be $46. And as someone who is trying to file documents in our office, Domain can attest to the fact that you are going to have to call the local county office to find out what the filing fees are. When I started this job quite a few years ago, most of our customers were local. We had local banks, we had local attorneys, local realtors. Now our customer base is nationwide, and because of e-recording, they come in from all over the United States. They will no longer know what the recording fee is until they call ahead. It would be quite time-consuming for us, not only to return documents with inadequate filing fees. Yesterday, it was brought to our attention that 2 new bills had been proposed, and they were standalone bills. And it is Senate File 2195 and House File 1733. At first, we weren't too concerned because we think the Clean Water Bill is going to become part of the omnibus bill, and they kind of get lost in there. Yesterday, we became aware that there is a standalone bill now, and it simply is for the $25 fee per transaction on recording or registration of mortgages and deeds that are subject to tax. And then what the recorder's office will do is collect this $25 fee, send it down to the auditor's office. They then have to disperse it in May, October, and December, which are 3 of their busiest months. So I've checked with Tyler, I visited with Kyle, I've also visited with Domain, and I would like your support in opposition of the bills.
I know this has come up at AMC's Environmental Committee as well, and we've been opposed to it from the beginning. So.
And it's a tax that's not fair to everyone. You know, if you live in town and get a deed and a mortgage, it'll be $71. If you have an ag mortgage, it'll be $46. So it's not a straight fee. And if you two want to talk about it too, it's.
I guess as far as the county goes and as far as our office goes, we're fine with the fees that they are right now. We don't see a need for increased fees. There's not an increased political will for we need to justify charging people more money just to record documents. It's more a hindrance on people than really what people is.
I agree with Tyler and Mary Ann. It's nice to have some continuity throughout the state, and to try to make something and create a system where you don't know what you're doing as a private practice attorney, it doesn't work. It just won't work. So as Mary Ann said, perhaps if commissioners would show that they do not support this, it might go a long way to making sure that we keep the system in place statewide. It's been working for so long.
Right.
Just a couple comments from Soil and Water. The Soil and Water State Association really isn't pushing this either. Our main legislative priority was to request the $22 million that we've been receiving for the last 6 years to come out of the Clean Water Fund. When that was originally adopted, it was supposed to be coming out of the general fund after the first 2 years. That never happened, so they continue to pull $22 million per biennium out of the Clean Water Fund. The Clean Water Council opposed that, so I think that's where Representative Hansen is pursuing other options to have stable funding for soil and water districts. And then this would be amending the 103C, which is soil and waters. But he puts may in there in a lot of cases because soil and waters throughout the state are funded differently. Some counties support their districts more than others. And so there's inconsistencies there as far as what is the financial need for soil and water also. So it's not an easy problem to fix or to solve. So I think that's where each of them are coming up with different options. But like I said, the soil and water legislative priority was to get $22 million out of the Clean Water Fund like has been done the last number of years.
I gotta agree with Tyler's comment too about how the filing fee doesn't really represent what it actually costs to do it. Basically, it's a surcharge, and it's a way where the state doesn't have, they need money to run the programs, but this is a tool that they're trying to use, and it's inequitable. I don't like the concept. If you need to raise the fee on something, you raise it proportionate to what it actually needs to be done, and don't hide it in a surcharge. What is the best way for our voice to be heard? Has anybody had these discussions with Senator Weber or Representative Schumacher? Do they know what our position is on this?
I have not. I had planned on emailing both of them this afternoon.
So what's the most effective way then for this body then to voice the support against raising this? What's the best way going other through our associations? You already talked about your Auditors Association and Recorders Association.
I think they're already on record as being against it. I don't know if they sent any letters to the state. AMC's against it, so we've already got them lobbying for the counties on their behalf too. I would think we just go to Weber and Schumacher and send them a note on this and say we don't support this.
Yeah.
You know, shoot it that way. That'd be my recommendation.
Should we do that as a letter then from this group?
From the county commissioners, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Can we just do that by consensus, or?
We can make a motion to do that. We'd make a motion to send a letter to Schumacher and Weber.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
Steve, I assume you're willing to draw that letter up for us?
Yep, sure will.
Yep. Do we need to see it before he signs and sends it?
Yes, I'll let you see it, yep.
That sounds great.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your support.
You bet. Thank you.
And one other thing while I'm here, I might as well mention that there is another bill proposed for marriage requirements. When COVID hit, they waived the in-person application, and there's now legislation proposed to be that permanent. And it works fine because now they have to prove identity too with either a birth certificate or a driver's license, passport, something like that. So that's one other bill that might affect our office. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
On the topic, just one other comment. The governor's budget also included authorizing taxing authority for soil and water districts. I don't know if you were aware of that, but that's something else that's been thrown out over the years. It hasn't gotten any traction, but that's something I'm aware of.
I know AMC has always been opposed to it.
Right. So, yeah, there's
But yeah,
always new
I
legislative.
did hear it was in there, but hopefully it'll go away.
Yeah.
Okay, personnel?
Morning.
Morning.
So in your board packet, you should have received a copy of the labor agreement between Pipestone County and the courthouse union. There is both a marked up version and a final clean copy of that. So I'm just gonna go through some of the changes. This has been agreed upon and voted on by the union, and they have approved this contract as it is. So on page 2 of the union contract, under union security, we're just deleting some old reference to the fair share fee, which is no longer an option for union members. They're either in or out of the dues paying for the union membership. The next page, page 3, just definition of a regular full-time employee. For EMTs and paramedics, they generally work 36 hours per week, so that is just identifying their normal work schedule of 72 hours every 2 weeks. The next few pages, there were no changes to the contract, so bear with me while I flip through here. Page 22, under general provisions, letter C, we added in some language to match both the jailer dispatcher contract and the deputy's contract, that EMT and paramedic employees would get time and a half for hours worked on a snow day. So that
change on 21 also. A deletion. Under funeral leave.
Oh,
1.
yes, excuse me. So the page before that is just deleting a reference to, under the funeral leave policy on number 1 there, just deleting the reference to transit employees, because we no longer have transit as Pipestone County employees. So that's just more language cleanup. And then just.
I have a question, Kathy, too,
Yeah.
on this snow days. And I realize that this is for the courthouse, but how does that relate then to highway department? If the courthouse is, I realize it's a different contract, but the concept, if the courthouse is closed because of snow, does that mean we have to pay time and a half to our highway department people to remove the snow?
No, they have something different in their contract.
I realize it's different contracts.
So they have, if the courthouse is closed due to snow, they can use those hours basically straight time for like a day off in the future. So say it's closed all day tomorrow for 8 hours, the highway union can then basically have a personal day off for 8 hours, like a snow day. That's what their contract reads, so it's different, yeah. But we thought the sheriff and jail dispatch kind of fit in well with the EMT and paramedic employees for that language, so. And then next page, page 23, just a new provision there under uniforms, letter I. We agreed to add this language for full-time EMTs and paramedics that they would get uniform allowances. And we did propose matching what the jailer dispatchers get, because we felt they were, had similar costs for their workwear, and so we proposed to match what our current jailer dispatchers get. So you can see there, that is a new addition. Previously, it was just a budgeted item. It was a budgeted dollar amount for each employee in the EMS department. So now, instead of us buying their clothing, they have to buy it themselves, and we provide them this stipend to purchase that clothing. A couple letter of agreements that are just long-standing letters of agreements, nothing new with those. And then finally, just the pay plan to match what we have agreed to with the other unions, a 3% increase in 21, 2.5 in 22, and 2.5 in 23. So we did get another 3-year agreement with them as well. One additional thing with the courthouse unit, we did also agree to a memorandum of understanding to establish a labor management committee. So that is included as well. And this, if the board approves this, we'd be agreeing, the union negotiation committee would be agreeing to meet with the union twice a year for discussions, and this doesn't commit us to anything, but just discussions to establish a sick leave or PTO severance benefit or a 457B, which is deferred compensation. It's basically the public sector version of a 401k matching program. So that's something the unions have been asking for a long time, and I guess this is just us formally agreeing to talk about it a couple times a year and just see. But yeah. Anything I missed, Steve, on that?
No, you nailed it. Good job.
So I would be seeking board approval of this contract and memorandum of understanding.
I'll make that a motion.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you. And that completes all of our union contracts, so we are good through 2023.
Good.
I just have an announcement on the highway maintenance workers that we're hiring. I can give you their names and their start dates as of today. So Rod Vandenbosch is starting on March 29th, so he's starting next Monday. And Nate Stoll will be starting on April 1st. So we're happy to have 2 more full-time highway maintenance workers starting next week.
Good. Experienced even.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I had, unless you had anything for me.
I think so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see here. Should we do the request for use of the courthouse grounds?
Sure, let's get all the little stuff out of the way and we can come back to the valuation if that's all right with that.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I did receive a request by phone from Marge Ehrlich for the use of the courthouse lawn on June 25th and 26th, or July 9th and 10th, depending on their scheduling on this, for a free event Christian music concert. All they're looking for is a place to pitch the tent that the chamber has, like we've done for Water Tower Festival, Relay for Life, all those events too. So it's no charge event, so I would recommend that the board approve that.
Mr. Chair, I will move that we approve that.
Okay.
Second.
Second, any discussion?
I assume there's no conflicts with those dates with other events.
Water Tower Festival's in July, I believe now, so.
Yeah, the end of July, I
Yeah,
think.
I don't think we have any conflicts that I know of. The only conflict we may have might be our sidewalk project, if that, we may have to work around this event if we're doing our concrete at that time, so.
Okay.
So we might have to find another location pending our work being done.
They'll have to work around us. We won't have to work around them.
Correct. No, we've been waiting, like, this is our second year of trying to get our concrete done, so we're gonna get this done, so.
Right. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. On the back page, I also received a request for use, Wayne brought this to me, for the courthouse grounds, or as a backup in case of bad weather, the Fairgrounds Cattle Barn for the annual Relay for Life event on Thursday, July 22nd. That's been a common one we've done for years and years and years, helping them out here either at the fairgrounds or at the courthouse lawn, and would recommend that the board approve that again as well.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
Okay.
And I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? Is this the same weekend as the Water Tower Festival, or
The weekend before, I believe.
before? Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
You'll
carried.
make sure that Wayne is up to speed on these, so he knows as far as the sidewalk where we're at.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Question on that. Will the stalls be set up for the fair, though?
I'm not sure how soon before the fair starts do they set them up.
Well, a lot of times they set that up for some other shows that are happening, they don't tear it down.
And would the blue building be a viable option for him instead of the stalls, the show arena?
I would think so. I think we can make it work. I'll coordinate with Wayne, and we'll work those out, those little details.
Okay. American Rescue Plan.
Okay. Put some information in your packet on that as well, just a few updates on that. We had a video meeting with AMC a week or so ago that they still don't know when the money's coming out. Our numbers we're still looking at for Pipestone County is over 1.7 million. And the plan was still as to pay it what they call in 2 tranches is the word they use. So they would pay a portion, half of it in 21, and then they would have the other half paid in 22. And the idea is that the money would be spent by the end of 24. But apparently there's a lot of issues with Treasury, how they're gonna get it out. They don't know if it's gonna come, we're gonna be the direct payer, or if it's gonna come through the state, through Minnesota Management and Budget, or how it's actually going to come out yet. So a lot of issues there that still need to be worked out, or when it's even gonna come through. They talked about here on page 2 of things we can use it for. Halfway down, they talk about costs associated with the public health emergency, respect to COVID-19, its negative impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, or aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. To me, that spells grant all over it. Item 2 is for essential workers, premium paid, eligible workers, and all that, broadly defined. Not sure where we'll be on that one yet, or how that's going to work out. So we were using some of those funds to help pay for those costs with the last round of grants. And since that one ended, we've been working primarily at the courthouse and at the office as well, not working at home here. Other areas have been working at home. For instance, social services, Southwest Health and Human Services have been working at home for the entire event. So they may have costs that could be possibly reimbursed out of this back to them like we did earlier in the year too. Government services, number 3, to the extent the reduction in revenue caused the county to lose revenue. That's a little bit more iffy. I don't know if Tyler's got any points on that yet or not. It's like too new to even figure that out at this point. I think we've covered our expenses quite well. And the last one, this is quite broad as well. Costs associated with making necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband. Well, counties, at least our county, doesn't generally deal with water systems other than rural water.
Right.
We are a member of that, but as far as sewer systems, broadband would probably be more logical if there could be money funneled into broadband projects to help enhance broadband availability or increase its capacity within the county, working with our vendors that are already there, type of thing. There's a lot, but we don't know how that's going to come out, what it's going to be. Issues I've been hearing right now is there's a huge shortage of fiber optic cable, and unknown when that'll be. And now that this is coming out, and this is a nationwide thing, I anticipate this is going to just ramp up the need for fiber and working with vendors and that type of thing to try to do more. And it'll end up being like us, in my estimation, like we're trying to get our video system done at the courthouse. Can't get anybody to do it because everybody's going to be so busy doing it for everybody else. I can just see issues there.
And it could push the cost up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mr. Chair?
Somewhat interesting, yesterday at our Rural Energy Board meeting, we had a presentation in from the Minnesota Rural Electric Association manager, and talking about how it was started back in the 30s and so forth with government money, and then also how the telephone co-ops similar to. So there is a possibility that they might get a little bit more involved trying to get fiber optic out as well, so that might be a possibility. because that would overcome our obstacle that we talked about before, and that separation between public money and privately owned.
Right.
And Mr. Chair, during our extension committee meeting last night too, that was brought up because now with the extension, a lot of these rural kids have to do all the, their sessions online, and broadband is very, very limited in a lot of parts of our county. Even, in fact, some of the people that were participating in the meeting couldn't even get their words through well because of how bad their connectivity was.
Yeah.
So I know we've invested a lot into it even since I came in on the board, but we still have a long ways to go as far as broadband goes here in Pipestone County.
And if this is going to give us some funding that we can redirect towards it, that's a terrific thing.
Well, there's also federal funding right now for broadband available too.
Right.
Right,
I
right.
think we really need to.
Yeah, we're lagging behind.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, carry on.
Yeah, that's it. And lastly, on page 3, most of that information there is state programmatic issues there, USDA assistance, SNAP benefits, meals and food, school funding to help identify homeless children, care provider grants, vaccine, obviously testing funding too, community health centers, mental health block grants, substance abuse disorders, local behavioral health services. So a lot of those issues going on at the state level, so they'll be using a lot with that. And some of those will, again, fall back into our Southwest Health and Human Services, so we may be asked to do some, shared funding like we did with the last round of grants back into Health and Human Services.
Is that going to tie, I see in that number 1 on page 2, it mentions households where before we just dealt with small businesses or nonprofits. I mean, do you see that be the way that would be dealt with is through Health and Human Services? I mean,
I'm just going to say it's too early to tell because when they put this in the federal guidance,
there is no
don't know what the
guidance.
rules are behind it. So
Right.
federal government needs to come up with the rules of where it's going to go and how we can use the money. And if that's through the state to us, it's just too early to say what that actually means. So I'm not even going to take a stab at it.
Sure. That's a pretty big change, though.
It is, yeah. When you add that in there, but don't know what that's going to mean yet and how it would even be.
It means the list of potential applicants could be much longer.
Yeah. So, but stand by. Even our small towns and cities, City of Pipestone is going to get approximately $460,000. Our townships and small cities will get between $20,000 and $40,000. Edgerton a little more than that, based on population. So there's a lot of money going out. So the city has already, City of Pipestone determined that they'll want to use their grant committee for working with these things, and I would recommend the same thing, that we continue to use our grant committee as we move forward into this issue and the other 2 issues I'm going to be talking about in a minute here too, so we don't have to start all over again. So.
Right, so then we really don't need to take any action?
No, this is information at this time. Just want to make sure that our committee stays intact and we continue to move forward with it. So as I see more and what comes in, I'll make sure I get it out to you, but I'll just right now, it's still up in the air as to exactly how it's going to be, and that's basically a quote from MCIT, how they said that it's all balls are in the air right now, what's going on with it. So, like they used to say, stay tuned for the next update.
We wait for the dust to settle.
Yeah, pretty much. The next one I have here, the possible release of $19 million of unused funds to counties. This is unused funds that came from the last grant we did through deed. For whatever reason, there was $19 million that didn't get used. So you have a spreadsheet on the next part of it that said we would get approximately $95,055 of that $19 million to do another round of grants. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but that is out there. And again, that would be, we do have a number of businesses on our list that weren't funded, and they could certainly, we could use that $95,000 and come up with a list of what we could pay out of that. And Tyler's nodding back there too. So when we get more on that, I'll let you know when that's happening. But I don't have a date or anything on that at this time. But you can see basically it's the same 26 counties that got $256,000 and $250. They're all going to get about the same again. So that's another grant that could happen. And then the third one, this is a new one that's just coming through. It's House File 1947, as put forward by, what's the representative's name? Start with P again. think of it off the top of my head. But the 1914 is a $50 million grant. They would be used for specifically what the House on this one wanted, is those that were affected by Executive Order 20-99 specifically. So again, that goes back to basically what we funded on the last round of grants: bars, restaurants, fitness centers, event centers, and we also put in event transportation in that too. So those are the ones that were most directly affected by 20-99. So this is in play right now in the legislature. Don't know if that'll come through or not, but it would be basically a very similar amount of money we got. Actually, it would be 45% of it, so we'd get just under half of what we had last time. So it doesn't go near as far because they're not dealing with the same amount of money. So that's where that is. So I'll keep you advised of that, but I just wanted to bring it forward just to let you know what is happening in the world of grants potentially coming forward here. Questions or comments?
Okay, then I guess your performance evaluation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll request that be a closed session.
Okay.
Need a motion? Action on that?
Yeah.
If so,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into closed executive session for
I'll support that.
evaluation.
Okay, moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we'll call it 10:58.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your live attendance. Yeah.
Okay.
We are live.
And this is off mute also, Steve. I don't think there's going to be online anyway.
There's no one on the,
I
No.
don't think so.
No.
It doesn't look like it.
No, no, it's just us.
okay.
Okay, we're in open session again.
Dallas, did you want to?
What she said.
So now that we are out of closed session, I just need the board to approve the satisfactory performance evaluation of Administrator Ewing and grant appropriate step increase.
So moved.
Second. Oh, Dan.
Okay.
Dan.
Any discussion? Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Looking forward to working another year with you.
For sure.
And more.
And more.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else to be brought up today?
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn.
All right.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now that we're out of the pandemic, well, I shouldn't say that. Now that we're on top of the curve and immunizations are out there, if you want